CNN.com/ticker. The big news on Capitol Hill today, of course, the release of the Iraq Study Group's long-awaited report. Joining us now in our strategy session to talk about it and more, Democratic strategist Paul Begala, Terry Jeffrey, the editor of Human Events. Thanks very much, guys, for coming in. John McCain just emerged from the White House, and he was critical of several aspects of this report and its recommendations, including this. Listen.
And we will certainly take seriously their recommendations. On the issue of the Israeli-Palestine conference or peace talks, we all want peace in the area, but it's very hard for the Israelis or anyone to negotiate with an organization.
All right, well, that was a clip we just ran a second ago. The other one I wanted to play involved Iran. He's concerned about this, effectively, this invitation without preconditions to bring Iran and Syria into this effort to try to ease the crisis in Iraq. What do you make of this?
It sounds like John McCain's running for president. And, you know, if you don't like his position today, wait around 5 minutes and he'll change it. I mean, he's flip-flopped on abortion. He's flip-flopped on teaching so-called intelligent design, which is a religious theory in terms of instead of evolution. He'll change on this. But he's, I think, just trying to kind of cater to where the farthest fringes of the right are. But the notion that a guy who called himself a Reagan conservative would say we shouldn't negotiate with an evil nation. They're not an evil empire like the Soviets were, who Reagan negotiated with. Soviets sponsored much more terrorism than Iran or Syria ever could hope to. And yet, President Reagan, like all his predecessors and successors, dealt with the Soviets. We should deal with Iran the same way.
That recommendation?
Yeah, especially the way it was pitched, Wolf. I will add that Ed Meese, who is one of Ronald Reagan's closest personal advisors, was a unanimous signer of this report. But what James Baker, who is chief of staff for Ronald Reagan, said at the press conference today when they announced it, he said, look, we may not have any success with Iran, but if we go to Iran, we make a direct overture to them, and they rebuff them, then we've demonstrated to the world that these guys aren't interested in dealing with us. And we are dealing with the reality that Iran, more than any other country, has influence on what's going on in Iraq. They have a bad influence now. Strategically, we have to stop that.
Here's how Harry Reid, the incoming Senate Majority Leader, reacted.
Their report indicates that they agree with what the election results were November 7th. There must be a change of course in Iraq. The Iraq Study Group is a rejection of the policies of the Bush administration, the war in Iraq.
You're not surprised that he's welcoming, in effect, this report.
And as he should. And, you know, I took the time to read the report today. I took careful notes on it. It is a stunning repudiation of the president's position in Iraq. And it follows, as Harry Reid says, not just the election, the American people's rejection of the president's course in Iraq, but even Donald Rumsfeld's leaked memo, the National Security Advisor Stephen Hadley's leaked memo criticizing the president's approach in Iraq, now the Iraq Study Group.
And Robert Gates' testimony yesterday.
Thank you for reminding. Yesterday, Dr. Gates directly disagreed with the president, said we are losing in Iraq. This report from beginning to end reads like the Democratic proposals of the last 3 years. I mean, I can go through something.
All right, well, I want to get Terry away. He actually said we are not winning. He was asked, are we winning in Iraq? And he said, no, sir.
Well, the policy clearly is not working. I say one interesting thing is there's a lot in here that overlaps Donald Rumsfeld's memo that was leaked to the New York Times. It doesn't contradict Rumsfeld. It forwards some of the things Rumsfeld's saying. But another thing that this commission said is that we need a bipartisan foreign policy. We need a bipartisan foreign policy, especially about our war in Iraq. A lot of the facts about the conflict in Iraq have been obscured by the partisan stump speech rhetoric of both the White House and Senator Reid. So I think as we move forward, people should deal with the factual assessment of the situation of Iraq that is very clearly laid out in this report.
Do you think that that hope for bipartisan cooperation that Vernon Jordan just expressed here is going to spill over now in the last 2 years of this administration as it goes forward on Iraq?
Well, it needs to happen. I think there is a sense in the White House that they have to grapple with this in a way that they can bring Democrats on board. There's a sense of urgency. We have another election in 2 years. So regardless of the fact that even the study group says we can't put a timetable on a troop deployment, there are going to be Democrats out running for president in Congress in 2008 if we still are taking casualties there, running on an anti-war, let's get out now platform. So there has to be real movement. It's got to be bipartisan, and hopefully this study group will help spur
That's
that.
John Murtha among those. He wants everybody to leave very, very quickly. Let's make the turn to Mary Cheney, the vice president's daughter. She's pregnant. The vice president's office confirming that. Get a statement from Focus on the Family, in part saying this: Mary Cheney's pregnancy raises the question of what's best for children. Just because it's possible to conceive a child outside of the relationship of a married mother and father doesn't mean it's best for the child. Love can't replace a mom or a dad. Gay adoption, by definition, intentionally denies children either a mother or a father. Is this going to have an impact on the whole debate right now over gay marriage, gay adoption, gay parenting?
I think it will, and in that sense, I'm very happy, of course, for Ms. Cheney and Ms. Poe, but it's a lot of pressure to put on one couple and to put on one family, and I sort of regret that. But that's the nature of being the vice president's daughter, I suppose. I think it blows a hole in the right-wing argument that somehow gay equality is an attack on the American family. Here's a wonderful American family committed for 15 years to each other, which is better than most of us straight people can do. And now they're going to bring a child in this world. The Bible says a child is a gift from God, and I believe that. And I think it's just a wonderful thing, and I think it'll help hopefully do away with some of the prejudice that some of our friends on the right have.
Terry?
Well, I agree with Focus on the Family. I think people have to look at this from the perspective of the child. And the fundamental question is, does a child have a God-given right to a mother and a father? And I think we all recognize when a father impregnates a woman and walks away and doesn't take care of the child, that father has done something wrong to the child because it's broken the fundamental bond of a family that the child ought to have. So when you take two people of the same sex, you artificially insert into that relationship a child, you are depriving that child of a fundamental God-given right that every person born in this world has.
We'll leave it there. We're going to have more on this story, though, coming up in the next hour. Thanks, guys, very much. Still to come, Senator Barack Obama.